Very rarely does a main menu inspire this much confidence in me, and Evil West did not disappoint. Evil West is Flying Wild Hog's next game. It's crazy to see how far they've come. Their first title was Hard Reset, but they're more well known for their Shadow Warrior franchise. The best way I can describe Evil West is if Shadow Warrior was a more grounded third-person hack-and-slash shooter. But that doesn't really do justice to Evil West, it's quite unique. Evil West takes on the underrepresented genre that is the Weird West. In their own words, it's a twist on gothic tropes, inspired by things like Hellboy, Moonshine, or the animated Castlevania TV series. This is a genre that's not too common, and I would love to see more. There's a lot of different directions you could take it. It leads to interesting main characters, interesting locales, and interesting enemies. You play as Jesse Rentier, son of William Rentier, leader of the Rentier Institute. The purpose of the Rentier Institute is to slay humanity's bloodthirsty predators. To say he's a vampire hunter would be a bit misleading. Vampires in this game are more like ringleaders or the center of their underground society. So, you are a monster hunter. And as this game puts it, evil never sleeps, but it does bleed. The Rentier Institute has been dabbling a lot more in technology. The result is a lot of electricity play, especially in your gauntlet. I'll get back to this later. This has made the vampires a little unnerved. They are afraid humanity's technology is advancing to the point of making vampires the weak ones. They're afraid the food chain is going to flip. In comes Peter DeBono and Felicity DeBono. With this fear, they're determined to make the first strike.
Humans build empires in the name of progress, with no thought spared for those paying the mortal cost of their quest for glory. That is true vampirism. My kind would never leave one of their children to die, crying in the gutter.
I won't let you turn them.
You don't listen!
I'm avoiding spoilers in this review, so I won't say any more, but that describes the story in a much more simplistic way than the way it plays out. Even if I wasn't afraid of spoilers, I wouldn't want to describe more than that. The general path of the story is a bit meandering, but not in a bad way. Never at any point did I question why I was on a certain level or why I was in a certain locale. The information you slowly uncover and the path to the end of the game is natural. I very quickly assigned names to faces, which is something I'm very bad with in real life. And these characters did speak like regular people, just with a bit of an Old West flair.
I'll have Martha set you up with a fresh kit bag before you go.
That won't be necessary.
Son, part of being a hero is knowing when to let people help you. Even Jesus had his disciples.
Yeah, but one of them turned out to be kind of an asshole.
Overall, I liked it. Quite a lot, actually. This is a game where the story is important, but also doesn't get in the way of the gameplay. But there is one character in this game I'm not really a fan of, and that's Harrow. This guy is your evil suit, who's just there to line his own pockets, not caring who gets in the way or who dies in the process. However, the way he's written just comes across as too cartoony evil villain to me.
Your secretary, maybe it would be for the best if you...
Maybe it would be best if you stopped interrupting me, you groveling mule! You want to make yourself useful? Get to the kitchen and fetch me a cup of coffee!
Really, a get into the kitchen remark? I mean, if you want to make a character misogynistic, there's way better ways to do that than this. This is just too on the nose. You are supposed to hate this character, and they go way out of their way to make sure you do, but I ultimately ended up hating him not for the reasons they wanted me to hate him. Like, sure, he's obviously a pile of garbage as a human being, but ultimately I found him just to be a detriment to the story overall. Thankfully, this is more of a side plot to the main plot, so it doesn't really get in the way that much. But I do think the story would be better without him. Overall, that's my only complaint. The story is quite good. I don't think it's as good as, say, The Darkness or Wolfenstein: The New Order, but it's above average. If I had to give it a score, I would say the story is an 8 out of 10. Graphically, this game isn't the most advanced game I've ever seen, but it's definitely not lacking. What really carries it is its incredibly unique art style. This game lives up to the Weird West, and you are going to see a lot of locales. From an incredibly foggy forest, to a more typical, almost Halloween setting, to a frozen research facility, to the more typical Old West setting, and many more. I am not kidding when I say that every level looks different. And many of these locations made me want to play this game like I was watching an E3 trailer. It's just a very good looking game. Now, I played this on PC, running at a 3080 with max settings, DLSS turned on with 100% sharpness. So I can't speak for consoles, but on PC, this is a very good release. Playing at 1440 at max settings, my average frame rate was 120 to 200 FPS. The more intensive levels would drop my FPS to 80, but still very playable. My friend was playing on a 1060, and he didn't have any problem running the game either. The gameplay is very smooth. I had one single crash across 13 hours of gameplay, My friend didn't crash at all. Every setting you would expect is there, including the Nvidia and AMD settings. There's even an additional arachnophobic setting. Wonder what happens if I turn this on. Oh my god. Okay, I'm not afraid of spiders. I mean, it'd be pretty difficult to be afraid of spiders when I live in a rainforest in the Pacific Northwest, but I 100% understand why this setting is here. There is a lot of spiders in this game. So if you're afraid of spiders, I would highly recommend turning this on. For me, I couldn't help but just look at all these spiders and giggle at it. Holy shit, there's so many of them. Graphically, this game absolutely nails the aesthetic it's going for, and as far as the PC release goes, this is a 10 out of 10. Getting into the gameplay, this game is so deep, it's almost daunting to explain. I am inevitably going to be leaving a lot out here, but I want to give you a good idea. I played with a controller, and the controls seemed pretty intuitive. I didn't really have any complaints. My friend played with keyboard and mouse, and it was the same story for him. The first weapon you get is your gauntlet. This is a basic melee combo attack you get by repeatedly pressing one button. On the controller, right bumper. The A button will dash by pressing it once and roll by pressing it twice. My one real complaint is a time-old complaint that you don't get invincibility while rolling. This can lead to some frustrating deaths. Occasionally, I would also just get stuck on almost nothing and die that way too. This is pretty rare. It doesn't ultimately harm the gameplay, but occasionally it happens, and I'm annoyed at it, so I felt like mentioning it. The right trigger will fire your revolver, holding down the left trigger will have you aim your lever action or eventually crossbow, the X button will fire your shotgun, the B button will let you heal, which is on a cooldown, the Y button lets you use an ability that stuns all enemies on screen, the D-pad will have you swap between certain weapons, and pushing in on the right analog stick will kick the opponent. This kick will interrupt strong attacks. If the enemy is flashing, kick them to interrupt it. So already we have a good basis. But this is without talking about the upgrades, the perks, and your combos. One of my favorite things to do in this game are the juggling combos. If you hold down the right bumper, you will do an uppercut. This will launch enemies into the air. Shooting the enemy in the air will keep them stuck in the air, Devil May Cry-like. You will also be able to juggle them with certain melee attacks, like you're playing Tekken. You can get very creative with these combos, and it's incredibly satisfying. Then you get into the perks. You can get a perk where if you're holding backward, you will launch yourself into the air and then slam the ground. This will cost energy, which is what those batteries are on the bottom. You can get something else where if you're pressing forward, you can launch them into the air and then punch them at targets, at enemies, and you can further get an upgrade that will make them explode on contact. You can get another perk that will let you grab them out of the air and slam them into the ground. Then you can get other perks that let you launch multiple enemies into the air. This is just for one mechanic. There is an upgrade tree for every mechanic in the game like this. Now you can understand what I'm saying by this game gets incredibly deep. It's almost daunting to approach, at least to explain. As you're playing, all of this gets introduced to you one at a time. So it's very easy to get the hang of. With that said, there are so many options, it's very easy to kind of forget what you have. And that's probably one of the best problems for a game. There is so much player expression, and that's without getting into resource management. In this game, if you stun an enemy and then do a finisher, you will get health back. So yeah, this game has glory kills. But if you press your left bumper, you get this sort of electric leash or electric dash. This will stun enemies. Stronger enemies have some extra steps before you can do this to them, so it's not overpowered. But there are upgrades you can get where if you do an electric finisher, you'll get your energy back. There are upgrades you can get where you can use batteries to heal yourself instead. And then there's another upgrade that will make you invincible for 5 seconds after healing. You can see how these stack and play on top of each other. And that's without even mentioning the weapon upgrades. So you can see what I mean now when I say this game is incredibly deep. This is also the extreme too long didn't read version. There are so many things I have left out. Since this game encourages player expression, I think it's better if you figure this out on your own. The sort of air juggle combos I described are only one way of playing. My friend I was playing with had an entirely different combo structure, an entirely different way to play the game. Everyone is going to play this differently, and it really encourages you to experiment. The one and only complaint I have with this game is the final boss. Now, I'm not going to show it because no spoilers. The only thing I will say is that the difficulty in the game is pretty solid, and then the final boss suddenly becomes Ninja Gaiden. And by that I mean, it stops being a good challenge where if I died I felt like I did something wrong, and starts feeling cheap. Now I'm playing a review copy, this may be changed by the time the game comes out, but be prepared for the final boss. Or just upgrade your skill tree to get as much invulnerability as possible. Overall though, gameplay wise I would have to give this game an 8.8 out of 10. It's incredibly solid. But there's one more thing. There is co-op. I love seeing this. I remember when co-op used to be the standard, but now it's just so rare. Co-op in this game is the regular single-player campaign. It's not an alternate story mode, it is just campaign with another friend. Now, I played this game entirely alone, and then played it more in co-op. Co-op will scale enemies so they won't be too easy for 2 people. And some combat encounters will have an entirely different enemy makeup. If your teammate gets downed, you can revive them. It's a pretty solid experience. Although, some of the animations while traversing from one area to the next, kinda do that. So, should you buy Evil West? Well, as you can probably tell, absolutely. This is a fantastic game. To me, it almost feels like a AAA 360 game, but with modern tech. And that goes right down to its exploration. And by exploration, I really mean there's a fork in the road, one way is the way to go, and the other way leads you to a chest or something. And that chest may be an item for your character to wear that looks slightly different, but overall, it's a very linear game. Evil West is a game with good presentation, a good story, incredibly interesting lore, and even more interesting gameplay. It is absolutely worth a buy.